Oh, yeah.
How we pronounce squirrel wrong.
Just
Yeah. Yeah, how are we pronouncing squirrel today?
quick aside.
Okay.
I found a photo on Facebook of Chip Zdarsky being bitten by a duck.
So that's his origin story.
That's his origin story. Yes.
Oh my god, it's a cover. I think that means we've officially started. Hey. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to our commentary here tonight at Orbital Comics. It's great to see such a wonderful turnout. For those of you who don't know, I'm Michael Eckett. I'm one of the voices on the Orbiting Pod, which is Orbital's podcast. You don't need to listen to it. It's a bunch of people saying really bad things. But because I'm one of those people who don't shut up, that's what's given me the astute honour and privilege of being able to introduce our guest today. And so would you all put your hands together so that I can welcome Erica Henderson.
Hello. Hello.
For anyone who hasn't been to one of our commentaries before, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the recent Marvel OGN, Squirrel Girl Beats Up the Marvel Universe, with some insight from Erica, who I'm sure has prepared a bunch of facts. And if not, I'm going to try and prompt.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, great. You should obviously have quite a lot of insight because if you don't know, Erica was the penciler, inker, and colorist on Squirrel Girl Beats Up the Marvel Universe, which is an astounding amount of work for one book.
It's too much. It's too much work.
Yeah.
We did it in a very short amount of time.
Great. I look forward to hearing about how terrifying that was for you.
Oh, actually, wait. Because it was so completely insane, I made a Facebook post that I found again about how much I did in the month of July, because that's when, it was the end of July, beginning of August, was when the book was due. So I'm going to skip the other stuff, but penciled 54 pages, inked 70 pages, and colored 102 pages. And then I also did 2 covers for other things.
Oh that's incredible. And
So that's where we're starting. So for a lot of the end, I was in sort of a fugue state. So we'll see. We'll see what I remember. The month after, I was completely tired. But I think I got through July because I focused on nothing else.
So there'll be some interesting facts towards the end of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of remember drawing this. Right. Okay. Shall we push on? Oh, actually, before we start, is there anyone who hasn't read the graphic novel? Raise your hands. Okay.
There might be some spoilers because we're looking at the actual book.
Yeah. If you're okay with that, great. If you're not okay with that, close your eyes.
Oh, good. The color's right.
Excellent. It's a good start. Okay, so let's go.
Funny thing here. We tried to get as many people as we could to do an introduction. It's Shannon and Dean Hale who did the book, right? Who did the YA book?
Yeah, the YA book. Is that out yet, or is that upcoming?
I don't know.
Because I haven't seen it, so I assumed that it was an upcoming YA book.
I think it's upcoming. I think I'm confused because reviewers have it.
Right.
So it must be soon.
Okay, excellent. That's something to look out for, fans of Squirrel Girl.
But I think I don't know why we couldn't get Dan Slott. He should be pretty easy to get a hold of. We tried Margaret Atwood. I almost said Margaret Thatcher for a moment. We tried so many people, and I mean, not to say that Shannon and Dean are bad, but we wanted to get someone who wasn't doing other Squirrel Girl book at the moment.
Someone who wouldn't have a little bias.
Yeah.
Ah.
So the very beginning was more of a challenge for Ryan because the book had to stand on its own. That was one of the requirements. And so for the 3rd time in 2 years, he had to introduce who Squirrel Girl was at the start of a story. So just trying to come up with yet another Squirrel Girl introduction after having already done 2. And I think we did it. I think he was going for the All-Star Superman kind of thing. Trains are hard to draw. And I had to find some that had actually been overturned to do this.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they don't show you the bottoms of trains. That's not easy to get. images of, so I had to look forever for terrible accidents that had happened.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to just lie on the tracks and draw them as they go past.
No, they don't like that.
And then this is where we start getting introduced to the wider cast.
Yeah.
For the third time.
Yeah, which was also, again, more of having to reintroduce these people for the third time in less than 2 years. Yeah, this was fun. It was like reintroducing Tippy and Doreen's relationship was always nice. Stopping generic robbers is always fun. I think we wanted to do that because that was always my favorite part of the old Batman cartoon from the 90s, where like the episodes that were just generic robbers and crime bosses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows that Squirrel Girl can like beat up anyone and save the day from all kinds of.
Well, I feel like you know that you can beat up some guy if you can
It's low
beat
stakes
up.
entry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we finally got to do Tony Stark after all this time talking about and to Tony Stark.
Yeah.
That was great. It was also hard because I was pretty sure we couldn't draw Robert Downey Jr. And that's sort of what everyone tries to do. So I think I was looking at pictures of John Hamm and then I looked at some pictures and then didn't look at the pictures while I was drawing it. So it was a pseudo John Hamm with a goatee. Fun fact about the clearly the Fly telepod page. In the background, there's a little TV screen with a segment from season 1 of Star Trek, the original series, from the episode The Enemy Within, where when you went through the teleporter, 2 different sides of you came out. There was an evil side and a good side. And that was my tiny Star Trek foreshadowing, if you recognized what episode that dog with a horn glued on its head was from. Oh, the High Evolutionary. Not anything to do with this, but a while back, if you guys have all read the second issue 1, when we established that she is not a mutant, for a while we sat around trying to think what was actually going on there. And I think I had pitched High Evolutionary, and that was immediately turned down. But it's fine. I think I like it better that we don't know. It's more fun that way. But it was nice to use him. Also, all these animals were so much fun to draw, and I loved it. I think I sat there for a day drawing animals in 80s outfits. I do a lot of my sketching by hand. All my thumbnails and sketching are by hand. And I tend to pencil on the computer because it's faster. So I can do the page and I can make changes on the fly. But I prefer to draw by hand. But then I'll print it out and then ink over that so that it's actually, you're seeing the ink line. And then I have to scan it back in again to color it. Fun fact about the animals. Ryan specifically stated that they should all be apex predators, but I argued that we should get ostriches in there because they're the most terrifying birds, and sometimes they kick lions to death. So I thought that was like, if you can easily kill an apex predator, you belong on this list.
And here's the activity page.
Actually, this part was done by Ryan North, except for that head up there and the squirrel girl right here. Ryan did all of these because I'd actually brought it to someone else who does graphic design, and it came back terrible.
Oh, God.
And Ryan said, "Oh, I know what I want this to look like, so I'll just do it." And it was fine. It was exactly what we wanted, so great. I guess we'll have Ryan do all of our little graphic design things from here on in, because I guess we can't trust other people.
Or yourself. Never trust anyone.
Yeah.
It does have the world's easiest word search, is what I would say about that.
Well, that's all Ryan, so you can take it up with him.
Yeah.
Have you had anyone fill in the activity page and send it to you?
No, I have had people cut out the coupon from the back of the Choose Your Own Adventure issue and hand it to me for snacks. And I think at those times I actually did just happen to have candy in my bag, so... So that's Aileen. Different fact, not about Aileen and Doreen, but about Nancy here. I was, for a brief time, obsessed with a website that resold antiques. And so everything she's wearing is from this website with all these designer clothes that are like thousands of dollars. But I just thought they were great. And so this issue, Nancy has her like thousands of dollars wardrobe.
That's actually one of the most impactful things about Squirrel Girl is the attention to detail of the fashion, and I think that's what can be engaging for a lot of readers. So where do you get a lot of your fashion items to dress your characters in?
It depends. For a while, I was just dressing Squirrel Girl the way I would dress myself, and then Nancy in clothes that I wish I had. Particularly because she has a much more different build than I do, so a lot of clothes work for her that wouldn't work for me. And so I was like, here are all my dream clothes. The boys are actually harder because I think less about men's fashions, and so I had to actually start thinking about men's fashions. Look at fashion bloggers every so often, and sometimes I just think I have little lists of what stores they would shop at, and I'll just look at what their catalogs are, or just this was more for Archie than for this, but sometimes that was because it was a younger audience, not younger audience, but younger characters. I would just look up what catalogs looked like for certain recent years. Yep, beating up animals. This was fun. There's much to say about that. I will say that Iron Man is my least favorite character to draw. Partly because I don't know how things like the armpits work, or when he flexes where things go and what things start to appear. And also, one of the things that helps a drawing be dynamic is you can see how muscles are moving, and he doesn't have that. He's always static no matter what he's doing. So it's a real pain drawing Iron Man. And his costume changes every month, so it's...
So for reference,
it's horrendous. Yeah. Splash page. Oh, starting on the right-hand side, that's where Tom Fowler started inking. He inked just the flashback sequence so that it would still feel a little bit different for the part that was being told as a story.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you managed to, because there's a lot of information on these pages. You're at the same time showing flashback pages and jumping back and forth between information that's currently going on.
In school, I actually majored in film, and so I think I come from things from a more cinematic point of view, and so it's more about making sure the story comes across. And I think that's true for just any decent comics. Like if the drawings are nice but you don't know how to read it, then that's an issue. And it's a storytelling medium, so you're really just trying to get that information down. And I think film is useful in a way because it's a lot of the language is the same. You have like close-ups and long shots, and a lot of the rules work in a similar way.
Yeah, so you've taken that experience with montage and cuts and jump cuts and just applied it here.
Yeah. Brian and his obsession with Spider-Man villains. We've done so many Spider-Man villains at this point. But Vulture is fun because he's just a crazy old man. I love drawing the crazy old men. And they let me do this costume, even though I think he's in some sort of techno costume now. But I just wanted to draw a crazy old man covered in feathers. These were fun. I always liked drawing. It's always hard to tell how you should draw someone who can't draw's drawings,
Yeah.
or at least someone whose primary skill is not drawing. But it's always fun because of that. I looked at a lot of photos of boring classrooms to make sure this classroom looked like a boring classroom. It's weird the things you need to look up because there's so many details you don't think about. And you would think that just a room would be something you can draw, but you don't think, what kind of molding or what sort of windows and what kind of chairs and what sort of chair truly describes that sort of cheap classroom setting. The conflict begins. Do you guys know horse ebooks? It was an early Twitter phenomenon,
Yeah.
a bot phenomenon, and it was tweeting basically just lines from books, right, from ebooks?
I think so.
Yeah, I think they were just tweeting lines from ebooks. And it was just this weird thing that people latched onto for a while. So that's Squirrel ebooks, but I took an image of a squirrel eating from one of those squirrel feeders that looks like a horse head as our this incredibly nerdy recursive joke. So this location is the Red Hook grain terminal. It's this abandoned grain distribution site in Brooklyn. I think Ryan had decided that it should take place in an abandoned warehouse in Brooklyn. I was like, Brian, all of Brooklyn is now completely done over, and all the abandoned warehouses are now hip nightclubs, so those don't exist anymore. And I went through a few websites that documented all of the abandoned places in New York City, which I'm amazed are still there because I'm surprised no one's bought this up and made it into some sort of bizarre nightclub. But it's a really cool space, and you should look it up later. I think up in the pointing section, our editor told me to add in the High Evolutionary's head from when Tippy was talking, and I forgot. So, you heard it here first. That was a really annoying panel to draw. Looking down, all that stuff, and also all the squirrels and the cages. So I feel like a lot of times, there's something that was mentioned to me first by a professor in college who has done illustration his entire life and used to do a lot of science fiction book jackets. And so he's done a lot of those like sci-fi fantasy painted covers from like the 80s and 70s, those kind of things. He told me about this one, I can't remember exactly what it was, it's been like a decade now. But it was basically, there was this space battle, this is what the author wanted for the cover. The space battle with, this, all this other stuff going on, like specific actions happening, and and like 20 other things, and also it's all in the eye of a dead astronaut floating. And sometimes I feel like Ryan is like that, where I'm like, we can't pull out. There's no zoom here. And that was one of those pages where I was like, Ryan, come on.
Sorry, can I ask a question? What happens when you've got that kind of sort of creative conflict like that? You would say that to what was
Most of the times I don't say anything and just fix it, and then he has to deal with it. Because we've already agreed that that's going to happen. So sometimes people aren't okay with that, and Ryan and I already talked it out, and I think he knows that he doesn't have a good visual language. Like, he can't picture it that well. So he's writing the story, and then I can figure out how it would look. But for him, it's all the words. So he's okay if I take something like that and change it. In that case, I guess I sort of figured out how I would do it because we wanted that to be a big splash page. But a lot of times I either change it entirely or I break it up into a bunch of smaller panels so that it'll work. And Actually, it's fine because something that Ryan does anyway, even if we don't change anything or don't change much, is after I've drawn it, he'll usually go back in and change from the dialogue so that it flows more with what it now looks like. So it doesn't actually change how we do things anyway because he's going to go and rewrite stuff regardless. This was so much fun. The squirrels controlling the suit. That was just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that it was one of the preview pages because it's just such a great example of tone and everything that's fun about the book.
It was also fun to just draw a completely awkward Iron Man.
More meetings ended like that.
I think this was one of those fights where I had to change a bunch of things because the way Ryan wrote it, I was like, this is just, no. Coloring these scenes was fun. So I don't get to color much these days. Getting to play with, like...
Shadow.
I mean, not even shadow, just... trying to think of a different term. I'm just going to use this term. A different color story for each scene so that each scene, just by the color, you can tell is taking place, you know, in a different sort of setting or tone. So you can tell these two pages take place in different times or places because the colors that define them are so different.
That's a video game reference too, right?
Which one is? Oh, they're right. So the latest Lego Avengers game added in the Squirrel Buster suit. And so Ryan put it in the story. And I'm actually surprised because I would assume that that was something that belonged to Lego or whatever the company is that
slightly
made...
different design. Yeah.
Slightly different, but...
It's fine.
Yeah, no, I actually haven't gotten to that yet.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, unlocking Squirrel.
I only bought the game so that I can get that one thing.
Oh, it's completely worth it.
So that the top panel and second panel, I guess, are both the first Avengers movie poster. Oh, I guess I don't know if the British one's the same as the American one because it seems to change for every. Okay. And that was fun with Ant-Man as Black Widow, even though she's there. That was fun. I like playing with the, going back to color, like having crazy lighting effects based on like things that are happening. I feel like these two pages are only those with the electricity and then the beam and then Tony in the helmet. Ryan sent me all this information on what all of Hawkeye's arrows are for this one page, basically. So all of those arrows are accurate. They all release the proper attack. Yeah. Oh, actually, the hammer thing was my idea, which we'll get to at the end.
Amazing.
Because Ryan had thought of... We're going to get to the tech tree bit in a bit for those of you who haven't read it, but Ryan had thought of the tech tree part. And then I was thinking, like, well, there's only one thing that...
Tops everything.
Yeah. Well, not even tops everything that the other one wouldn't be able to use. But we had a fight with Tom Brevoort about that. Oh. I always wonder if I should hand letter these things because fake handwriting always looks weird to me. And then I remember that no one wants to read my handwriting. So I used to hate drawing Spider-Man because of all the webs. And I think I've finally gotten used to it. Joe Quinones, who does Howard the Duck, always says that he likes it because it's very zen going through all the webs. And I've finally gotten to that point. I used to hate it. Hated it so much. I think I forgot to add his little glow, but nobody cares. So Rico Renzi, who colors the book, we got to do all the cards in this. So all the cards in the upcoming pages were all by Rico. And I guess that's his first non-color work, published art. So that was exciting. I think I had been bugging Ryan for a long time because I wanted to draw Ben Grimm. So we finally got Ben Grimm in there. And of course, everyone else is a Spider-Man villain. He wanted to do Dr. Octopus, but forgot that he was dead. Which is why we did Lady Octopus, who nobody likes. This page was a lot of fun.
Like, it's just another example of the amount of information that you managed to fit on one page, which I always find
really
incredible.
started getting crazy by the end because, as he was adding more and more characters, I was sitting there thinking, what are you doing? This is terrible. Why do I have to do this? The coloring on this page is really fun because I just went down the rainbow. So it's just a rainbow, and I didn't know if it was going to work, but I ultimately I like it because I think the whole idea was basically because each one's a different scene, I wanted the colors to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it was just literally a different color on each panel, then that would do it. But I wasn't sure if it was going to look silly because it is literally a rainbow. And Ryan did the text tree in the next page because he had already figured all of that out. He had, with this and the Choose Your Own Adventure, he always winds up, those movies when a detective is trying to catch a serial killer and they just have a wall with like photos and string. That's Ryan. So he got to do that because he was the only one who understood how it all worked, and there you go. This was fun because I like doing coloring things at dusk because it's the only time the sky gets to really change. So otherwise it would just be the same sky all the time. But also it works so well with the Hulk because he's green. I love drawing the Hulk.
Yeah?
I don't know why. I love drawing these like big, crazy characters like Ben Grimm and the Hulk. The Hulk because he always has to have an angry face because he's the Hulk. And so no matter when you're drawing the Hulk, he's always at his most extreme moment.
And you also get to draw the world's most adorable squirrel.
Little Miss Cupcakes is a Japanese dwarf flying squirrel, which, in my opinion, is the cutest species of squirrel in the world, which is why she got to... In my head, I just thought maybe she's from a zoo, and that's why she's there. In New York. I think this is another one of those times where I was like, Ryan, there's too much. Ryan, what are you doing? I hate you, Ryan. Why is this happening? Yeah, and oh my god, it was so hard to keep track of all of her stuff by the end. And I think I wound up having to go back to pages over and over again. So it's like, oh right, she's got the Black Panther necklace. Oh yeah, she's got that thing. Just had to keep going back and adding stuff on to pages where I forgot. Yep. Drawing people running around their underwear in an all ages book. That was fun.
Now a different mood with the colouring again.
Yeah, nighttime.
Yeah.
I think Ryan decided it'd be nighttime, which is fine, but I think it works if we haven't had any nighttime scenes yet. I at first was gonna design much more elaborate homemade costumes for them because their costumes were under a tree somewhere, but in the end I don't think they were in them long enough, so I didn't want to go too crazy with that stuff because they wanted to be like, I wanted to be readable when they were small and not just be these like tiny details that you couldn't see. Oh, hippo. Glad we got to bring him back even though it was only for a page and a half.
Good Squirrel Girl continuity.
So in issue 11,
Mm-hmm.
Ryan did Venom and Dr. Octopus the way he knew them in the 90s because he wanted to do them, and they're both basically gone. And I think in this one, he had to use them in the way they are now, which I don't think he liked. So then he did this is all a dream and fake, so they're not dead or not Eddie Brock.
And we also get a ton of Squirrel reference at this point as well.
Yes. I've looked at so many pictures of squirrels. Whoever wants to know any squirrel facts, I can give you some squirrel facts when we're done with this. We're getting towards the part in the story that was very emotional and hard to work on because I was getting very emotional. Where Doreen gets transported to the moon, and it was really, I really enjoyed doing it, but it was also like, it was hard.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah. There was a slight argument with the very last panel on the page on the left, because I think they had written in a very loud crack, and I had made a very small one. One, because she's a squirrel, and two, because going back to movies, I feel like that's how it'd be in a movie, where it's just like, and then it cuts, and then we're back off to the other scene.
Yeah.
So that's going back to the cinematic part. But yeah, this was really fun to do in that way, where like you're cutting back and forth, and you go back and forth between her and Tippy, and having the hammer fall, and then that last panel where you're connected by color to Tippy, because you have the yellow going through with her, and then the yellow at the very end. What? That was really fun to design.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, and I hope they make a toy one day, because I want one. This was one that I thought would be really... It's weird. Sometimes these big splash pages are really hard, and other times like this, it's just fun because you're doing whatever. And I got to just literally draw whoever wasn't dead at the time. But also, you know, try not to make the page too crazy and let it flow a little bit. But yeah, that was great. Trying to figure out how to draw a squirrel in the hospital.
Yeah, that must have been hard to find reference for.
I don't think there was any reference. I think, unless it's like, you occasionally see pictures from rescues of like a hedgehog that woke up from hibernation too early, and so it's just like its entire arm is wrapped in like a pink bandage. And also looking up reference of needles and things. This is great. One fun fact here, young Hank McCoy is in the wrong outfit. He's in the classic outfit, which our editor apparently allowed, because the first Halloween that Dave and I were together, I dressed him up as Hank McCoy, and so Will wrote it off as, that's just Dave. That's just Dave back there. So maybe we'll share some photos later. Dave would love that. Yep, this was fun. Fashions were fun. I think it was around the beginning of this year was when I decided that Koi Boy would dress a lot nicer all the time, and Chipmunk Hunk would have the sort of casual chic look. The Magneto helmet is really hard to get right as you're turning it and figuring out where someone's head should be inside of that thing. There wasn't much to say about this one, just a lot of squirrels. The end. Gets a couple of the early sketches up there. They weren't very good, and I knew it. Every so often, I won't have any ideas, and I'll just send off the few bad ideas I'll have to our editor, and he'll say, these aren't very good. And I'll say, I know, you're right, and then I'll go back to it. And finally I'll have my idea. But I know that, like, every so often I have to send him all the bad ideas, and then that's when we'll finally figure something out.
It buys you time.
Yeah. But I think it's just good having someone else sit there and be like, why did you send me these? Oh yeah, so my sketchbook sketches of... I think I literally just did the one drawing of Squirrel Girl in the Thor outfit, and that was it. It was approved and we were good to go. And then all the animals were just... They sprang forth fully formed because I knew what I wanted. Oh, yeah. See, I haven't really gotten to look through the book because Marvel hasn't met me my copies, so I'm not entirely familiar with everything in the back because I didn't have to think about it once my part of the book was done. Fun fun fact, Scarecrow over there was drawn by Dave.
How do you guys normally decide who's going to be an artist on the Deadpool cards?
A lot of times I just ask someone. More recently, we sort of discuss it internally because I was sort of running out of people that I had just in my head already. In the upcoming issue, we're gonna have Michael Cho actually, because he asked Ryan if he could do a card. So I think now we're actually getting people who want to be in there asking us. So yes. But yeah, for the most part, it's just me going to people that I like or whose art I want to see in the book. So like, the first person I asked was Maris Wicks, who is a friend of mine who lives in the area, and I was hoping she'd get to do all of them, but she was too busy making her own comics. So yeah, they're all artists that I know and like. And I think the Swarm one was a friend of Rico's who he'd been trying to get in there. And then I said, hey, does he want to do Swarm? Then found out that he loves Swarm. We found Swarm's one fan. So that was great. The one person who enjoys Swarm. Oh, what? There's more book. Coloring this was funny because on my computer, and I should have known this because I know how printing works. The pinks were so bright. I just went for the most neon colors I could. And, you know, ink doesn't work that way. So it wound up a little duller. But the one I sent in was just completely 90s shocking neon colors. Just because I wanted the negative zone to look a little crazy. Fun fact. Brian tried to send a picture of himself in a Batman costume, and Marvel wouldn't have it. I think it was actually completely a Batman Returns thing, so his wife was also in there on the side, like, licking his face. Just... I mean, she was dressed as Catwoman, so I mean, it wasn't just, like, some woman on the side just like, eh. Oh, yeah. You get a free digital copy, so be sure to download that, I guess. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen that until just now.
You don't know what that picture was for.
Yeah.
No.
I was like, what is this?
Was there any other insights or tidbits which you'd like to give?
I can tell you the thing. I was like, tell them things I was telling you before we started.
Yeah.
None of you can see this because you're all the way back there, and it's been about more than 15 years now, but I was bitten by a squirrel. That's my X-Men origin story. There's still a tiny indent in my finger from when I was viciously attacked by a squirrel. It's also when I first learned that squirrels cannot give you rabies, so don't worry too much if you're bitten by a squirrel, because if an animal with rabies bites a squirrel, it's probably going to die because it was attacked by a much larger animal, or it'll be eaten, which also, I guess, also is dying. That's also dying.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it happens.
It falls under the spectrum of death.
What a wonderful spectrum. Do we have time for any questions? Yes, we do.
Otherwise, I'm just going to keep saying squirrel things.
Yeah. Oh, great. Squirrel facts I'm definitely looking forward to. But if people do have questions,
Okay.
you can ask them. Oh, Joe definitely does. Joe? I get to run around. Thanks, Robin.
So it seems like both you and Ryan have like opinions on costumes, and especially like the current costumes. Is there much fighting on that, or do you tend to just go with the current iteration? Or
We tend to go with the current iteration. We don't really go back to the old costume since New Avengers started using it. So that was her New Avengers costume. If you followed the news from before San Diego, there's going to be another costume. Because whenever they ask us what we want to do after a Marvel event, it's basically, we don't care about your event. I guess we'll make a new costume. Okay. But yeah, actually, the second costume, the little dress costume, is actually from the last time we were in Europe. We were walking down we were walking past like an Adidas store, and they were advertising. I don't know if it was France. It wasn't Wimbledon. I don't know. They were just tennis. It's a sports store. They can advertise tennis. They had in the front all these little tennis dresses, and I thought, oh my god, sports dresses. This is great. I'm gonna put her in a sport dress because I didn't know that you could wear a dress for sports. I love this. So that's the origin of that costume in its entirety. Which means I guess I should have written off that trip as a business expense. Did you know that squirrels were introduced to cities by humans because cities were incredibly depressing when they first started, and they thought that squirrels and parks would make things seem more like being back in the country, and they were picked because they're an animal that adapts well to living around humans. It was the late 1800s, at least for America. I don't know about here.
Great squirrel fact.
Is Chipmunk Hunk's jacket over his costume an homage to the sort of 90s trend of having jackets over costumes?
A little bit. It was partly that, and also partly because I just wanted to add something. And a jacket is something you can just toss on, and it adds another dimension. So you're not just wearing a spandex jumpsuit. But also, I like that sort of Morrison Animal Man kind of that look.
Is there a dream like Marvel character you want to introduce into the series that probably like one of those deep cut characters?
Oh, deep cut character. I don't know about deep cut character. I feel like we're already doing those all the time. I don't know. For character I would love to introduce, but I'm not sure it would work because Ryan doesn't understand at all. Would be Dazzler. But he doesn't know why people like Dazzler or what her entire thing is. But I like the idea of her just being this pop star that the other characters are really into.
Just start drawing Dazzler stuff in the background.
Yeah, I do occasionally,
Yeah.
like the posters and things. But I don't even know what's going on with her these days.
Yeah.
Is she dying?
No, she
was dying, right?
She's very angsty because she
Yeah.
got kidnapped and
Right, I knew
Mystique
about-
replaced
yeah.
her, so she's all angsty and on A-Force at the moment, or was before A-Force ended.
But for the next issue, because of me, we're putting in Taskmaster. Because I just think he's fun to draw. And none of his costume makes sense because his entire thing is just he's good at copying, but he's dressed like a Skeletor and a pirate. There's no reason for it. I love that.
I'm not going to complain about Squirrel Girl Beats Up the Marvel Universe missing Iron Fist, but Robin knows that it's on record now.
What's that?
I really wanted to see Iron Fist in Squirrel Girl Beats Up the Marvel Universe.
And he's on the cover.
I know he was. And
Well,
that made me so happy, Erica.
I drew
Believe
the
me.
cover, and then Ryan wrote it after. And is he not in any of like the piles of bodies?
I feel like I would have noticed, but I'm probably wrong.
I honestly don't remember at this
I
point.
might have confused him with Hawkeye.
Will we be able to see any red squirrels in Squirrel Girl sometime for the British contingent?
I guess it depends on if she goes somewhere with red squirrels. I don't want to start tossing red squirrels around willy-nilly. What's that? Do they?
The red ones were the ones that were in Britain.
Oh, right, and the grey ones have...
Yeah, are Reds
That's too bad.
technically endangered now, or
Oh, no.
okay? Yeah.
We added some black squirrels in the Canada section because I kept seeing black squirrels in Toronto when I visited Ryan. Yeah, they're just pure black.
Have you ever thought about doing an issue about hibernation, since squirrels need to sleep a lot? And
But they don't need to sleep when they are indoors and are warm. So if you have a way of keeping warm, animals don't tend to hibernate. So it's only when, you might die from lack of food being around. But if, otherwise it's fine. Like there's animals that normally hibernate who, if they stay indoors, are just they just do the regular thing all year round.
You mentioned how much you enjoyed drawing the Hulk and the Thing. So I was just wondering who out of the regular cast of Squirrel Girl you enjoyed drawing most.
The regular cast?
The regular cast, yeah.
Probably Nancy.
Nancy.
I think Nancy's a lot of fun. She's also, it's funny, Brian based her off of a friend of his, but reading it, she sounded so much like a friend of mine. To the point where when the first issue came out, everyone was asking, why did she put her in this book? Why is she right here? Even though Nancy looks nothing like her, except that they're both black. But otherwise, it's like the only thing. But yeah, I think she's a lot of fun to draw, and I think we've both come to really enjoy Nancy and also their dynamic. So it's just, yeah, I really enjoy Nancy. So going back to characters, Dave pointed out someone who I've wanted to put in there, but I don't know how because he's ridiculous. It'd be Adam X, the Extreme. But you would have to have a really good reason for Adam X to show up. And he's also gotten a little... I feel like in recent years they've taken off the extra knives.
Yeah.
And he's sort of just this like sad, angry dude.
The knives really make it. Okay, so I think that's questions from everyone. So that's gonna wrap up today's event. Thank you once again for coming and
no
doing
problem.
this. I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone, but I think this was really, really wonderful for you to come and do, and got some great insight. It's fantastic. So thank you, and could we all thank Erica once again?